Oh, hey there. Happy 2026. If we've not met, my name is Josh. For those of you who know me, hey, good to see you. If we've not met, I hope that this is helpful as we look at 2026. So, what we're going to go over here next 30 minutes or so is a project that we've been working on for a while. And the genesis for this came several years ago when I did a large bulk of one-on-one audits, is one way you might say, insight sessions for developing traders. So I did about 252 of those in a year. These are 30-minute conversations with developing traders. And one of the questions that I would ask in every one of those sessions was, what is your trade? And without, aside from a few exceptions, the answer was some triggers. But generally there was no trade. Not as I understood it in terms of how do we show up and express with confidence, and how do we do that with a playbook that we could look for, and as my buddy Anthony Credelli talks about, that I can prepare for, that I can anticipate, and that I can execute. So I am coming into 2026 under the impression that the cards for the developing trader, the cards are stacked against you. Like if you're a DIY, try to figure it out type trader, it is remarkably challenging to kind of carve your way forward. And I just think that it's not fair. I really think it's not fair. It's not anyone's fault. It's just there is a ton of information and resources that are out there. But how do you filter through those? I mean, I'm part of this like weekly meetup where, or bi-weekly meetup with traders in Colorado. And, there's always new developing people that come, and, they found something they think, but they're not really sure. And there's this one kid in particular that I've literally talked to him over 6 months, and he just still doesn't know what his trade is. So it's not his fault. It's just, there's so much that's possible. He doesn't even know where to start. It becomes overwhelming. When I got started in markets, I was just told, this is your trade. And this is your trade. Can you understand this? Can you understand the dynamics of this? And then it was in the practice of that helped me understand how to move beyond that. Think of it a little bit like parenting, right? So for those of you who are parents, when you parent young children, you don't leave them in nuance and in the gray. You tend to give them black and white things. Now, why? Because their young developing brains need something that is very easy to understand. Over time, that won't work, right? The black and white leads over to situational ethics and nuance, but that's okay because you can appreciate that because you had the simple foundation. What I observe today in the space of people trying to find a way in markets is that it's all nuance, and so it can kind of make you mad. And the idea behind SignalP was really that we could connect developing traders to a playbook. So, give you a playbook, and it's going to signal for you where are playbook trades that you could easily identify and make decisions around, and then also learn how to cultivate your own playbook trades. Because what I tend to find most often is I find traders who believe that essentially when I ask them about what's their trade, every price is actionable, every time is actionable, and they're essentially trying to trade the narrative. So they're looking at this large time frame, whatever time frame they are, and they're trying to pick some type of direction for some point. They largely don't know where the target is, so then it's hard to assess the risk, and they're doing the best they can in an impossible situation. So since we've been in this world of trying to democratize access to things, well, let's democratize access to playbooks, and then let's evolve those from a foundation. And that's what SignalP is to do, is to say, no, we are not going to try to trade the narrative. The narrative is the context that helps us discern where potential playbook trades might be, but they are themselves not the actual playbook trade. And ultimately, also the objective right here is to help you offset the time trying to cultivate something that works, which only raises opportunity cost. So, if I can give you something that works and I know that works, then then you can spend time actually just honing that rather than trying to figure out something that works to begin with. Okay. So with that being said, we're gonna jump in and talk about SignalP. So I've got let's get to the screens. So I've got NASDAQ futures here up on the left, and this is the dashboard. I'm gonna kind of give you an overview and walk through what SignalP does and how you could use it. At a base level, these right here are all playbook ideas that were generated for today. And you can see the products. So ES, NASDAQ, Bitcoin, crude oil, gold have all been in play, and they're all different playbook types. So what does that mean if you've never had exposure to what is a playbook and how do we define what that is? So it's an identifiable pattern that you've seen before, but for us, all playbook ideas answer 4 questions. Okay, so if you've seen these questions before, forgive me. I think they're helpful, but I think there's 4 questions that you got to ask and answer before you place a trade. And these are those 4 questions. So the first one is what is the opportunity or the target? So there's some driving input that I can identify within a market, but that's not the interesting thing. The interesting thing for me is where do I think that then will take price to? Okay, one of the key distinguishing determinations between a retail brain and an institutional or professional brain is that retail thinks about a behavior as that is the trade. That could be, hey, now I pay attention for the potential of a trade, or this is helping me enter something, but it is not the trade, because when you're entering based on some type of triggering behavior, the outcome is unknown, and it starts to elicit things like you get in and then it goes in your favor a little bit, and then you get out, but then it keeps running, and you're like, oh, I left money on the table. And I'd say no, unless the whole idea was to get to those prices, you didn't leave money on the table. Because it wasn't defined by a target to begin with. It was defined by a trigger. And at that point, the outcome is anything, right? Which can absolutely drive you batty. So there's a remedy for that. And that is that when I see an inciting event, then that leads to a target. And then that helps me go, okay, well then, if that's the case, what would I be willing to risk for that target to reach that? And then once I'm in this, if I pull the trigger, how should this play out? What would tell me that I'm right? And then if I pull the trigger and I'm in this, what shouldn't happen? So like, what would tell me that I'm wrong? Which means that sometimes I don't have to take my full state of risk, but I can actually get out before that. Okay. So on SignalP, we have a number of playbook trades that all follow this structure. So these are all of the playbook setups that we look for, and they're all identified using a market profile graphic. So there's an initial balance go with, an initial balance go with on a pullback. There's an extension fade. There's an open reverse go with. There's a trend continuation, open outside of range go with. There's a third period reversal, open drive go with. So all of the ones that are in white, we're currently generating signals for. The ones that are in yellow, we haven't done that yet, but they're on the way. But what that results in is the ability to have a number of ideas that I can look for throughout the day. And so, let's look at this one in the Qs, for example. So here is the signal. So what was the driving input? What was the thing that happened that said, oh, there is the potential for me to join this towards something? And it was an open reversal, open type. This is where an auction opens, drives in one direction, makes you think it's going that way, and then it reverses back through the open with greater velocity, traps people, and you're going to get excursion beyond that. So, what was the target? In that case, I mean, there was a defined target that was generated, essentially the extension of the initial balance low, but overnight low as well. What was the alert price? How do we know that we're wrong, or what's the risk? So we're wrong if price accepts above halfway back of A period or above the ETH VWAP. But then there's also confidence factors, right? So a lot of these were in play that add to confidence. So what I did with this one specifically, as you can see here, I saved this as a signal for me, and then I took snapshots of what did that look like. Okay, so here was the open. We had traded back through. What was I believing it was going to go get? I mean, I could look at the chart and go, okay, I think it's going to go get the point of control of the prior day, and you can see that that's Well, we did. That VWAP was, if we go back here, the VWAP, was at 683. So entering around 664, about 20 points of risk, but you're looking for about 60 points in excursion off of that, right? Now, that now is saved as a signal, and I can track that and we'll be able to filter that along the way. So part of what this is honing your focus toward playbook trades and then also helping you cultivate your own. And like these are the ones that I had today. I had an IB go with in gold. I had the open reversal in the NASDAQ. I looked for that. We signaled for an open reversal in crude, and it didn't work the way I wanted it. So I passed on that. I was looking for a trend continuation in gold. I actually never got that signal. The alert hit that, so I can pass on that. And so that's essentially my day. And I can literally wait and see if there's additional ideas. So let's just look at this Bitcoin one, for example. All right, I'm going to pull up a different chart real quick. Let's go over here. All right, so let's see what this signal is suggesting. All right, so it's a trend continuation in Bitcoin. We're expecting the target. If it's a trend continuation, it's a trend day that we can see through the market profile, and we're looking for the high of the session in the last hour. So we got a bit of time till that. What things are going for this? We have one time framing. We're accepting outside of the initial balance. We're holding in a trending channel. Values falling price. We're above RTH mid. Prior day was rotational. Let's go look at this chart. So we were, when this signaled, we were in 1 to 2 standard deviations of VWAP, and we were outside of the IB moving higher. So if that was to hold, we should go see these highs, the 91,600 by the end of the day. Now, wrong if the auction stops one time framing for more than 30-minute period or accepts back inside the IB or returns to the VWAP. So see how it's accepted back inside the IB? So for me, this one's off the table. But what did this do for me? Like it said, here was a potential. Now I have additional things that I can just focus on identifying. And by staying focused around a developed playbook as opposed to trying to figure one out, it's a little bit like how I used to teach people to play guitar. Years ago, I used to teach kids to play guitar, and be a really good musician. You understand music theory, but when you're 10 and you just want to play your favorite song, or you're in your teens, you'll play your favorite song. You don't really thinking about music theory or why something necessarily works or why does it resonate. You're just like, I want to play this song. Okay, great. I can teach you the song. Teaching the song at least gives you some success to know what to look for. And then now that you're playing that song, well, now if you play with somebody else, you're like, oh, I'm out of tune. Okay, well, now we can talk about being in tune as we're doing this. And we can talk about cascading, like the real stuff, as opposed to just trying to figure out something to begin with at all. And this is what I'm just seeing over and over and over in the space of those who are attempting to find a way forward in markets, is a trade. They're just trying to find a trade. Okay, so SignalP is here to give you trades, to signal trades and reduce the amount of opportunity that you have to spend looking for these, and just focus on here's what's out there. So then you can just focus on what's out there. So like if there's nothing that's signaled, guess what? There's nothing for me to do. I can just wait for the next signal to come in, and it'll, once it comes in, it'll notify me, and then I can decide if I want to do something else. I can also kind of create my own signals if I want. So it's not existing in here, but currently, if I expand the NASDAQ here, we have a trend day lower in the NASDAQ. Okay, so what does that mean? It means I think that, we haven't seen the low yet. So I could actually create a signal myself and say, NASDAQ trend continuation. It's just an idea. The target would be 25 to 93. and I'm going to create the signal. And I'm also going to take a screenshot of this thing. Now, in this case, on a trend continuation, if I want to, we're outside the initial balance. That's good. We're one time framing lower. That's great. But you can see we're real close to that price. So actually, I would rather see an attempt back up toward the initial balance and then see if it fails so that I can get basically selling above value and then get that rotation lower. So I now have an alert up here. Let's see if I hit that alert. But now that shows up in my signals. Okay, so I could add additional notes on that, and then I can track that, and then we'll provide statistics to give you an idea of like where are you actually good, because that's another thing is like how do I know what I'm good at in trying to develop your playbook of trades. You don't have to trade multiple products. You can trade one product. Even on our platform, if you're like, hey, I just want to trade the NASDAQ, you can say, okay, I just want to see anything for the NASDAQ. Right? And it will just show you those for the NASDAQ. And you can really just hone on a specific product, and you can see the number of signals that we've generated over the last number of sessions. Not every day, but and also with these, so when we generate signals, they're like hitting the best confidence criteria. So I may actually look for an idea like this trend continuation in the NASDAQ, which hasn't actually officially triggered, but I'm like, hey, the conditions are kind of there. I'm still going to kind of watch it. But this at least is a good start if you're looking at trying to build out a playbook where you're like, okay, now I know what to do or what not to do, and then I can build from there. I'm seeing so many people try to figure a way forward, and that becomes the obstacle itself. We really do. We live in a resource-rich environment in terms of things to help you trade better. The hard part is how do you know which would be helpful and which would not be helpful? So the idea behind SignalP is to try to focus you on, hey, these are things that would work. With respect to our signals and the ones that we generate. So I'll have to double check with Brian, but I think we're still hitting a 100% batting average on, does every signal have some positive expectancy? Now, that doesn't mean that that's worth your time. It may one tick in the direction and move forward, and the model would still say it's positive expectancy. So this is not saying like get in or enter. It's saying now pay attention, which would address a chief problem that I see over and over again of traders is that they think like here's okay. So now it has triggered for trend continuation, but let's look at this. I'm still looking for those lows. Looks like it's going to get those lows, but I'm going to see, okay, yeah, we're in trend, but can I get better trade location on this? So it doesn't mean execute here, but it does mean, hey, it's worth paying attention. It's focusing my attention towards something that could actually work, as opposed to, I don't really know if something's going to work. That makes sense? I hope that makes sense. Also inside of SignalP, we've got, so in the past I did daily outlooks and quick sheets to help us kind of look at across a number of products. That's now all live here. So you can look at any product and say, okay, well, what was the prior day? What's the expected range for the day? What are some key levels? Expected low, prior low. What's a prior session VWAP? Meaning what was, the accepted average price for the prior day? That's a good bias for the next day. If I'm above or below that, then that's likely to continue, which will continue to build out. And then we're also going to we'll start filling it out this week, or this weekend, but we'll have education on the platform here, not just for the specific signals themselves, but just helping you understand the auction and build out your understanding. The same as if I ever had somebody like, come and work on a desk. So that hopefully this goes in the right direction for you. The barrier to entry in markets and trading is lower than ever before. The barrier to succeed, I think, in some ways is higher than ever before because there is so much noise. I'm not telling you anything that you probably don't already know. But what can we do about that? We could focus it. We could focus it, and we could build it around simple things to observe, so that we could know, okay, what are we looking to do? For example, if I just look at these signals again, they're all based on a market profile graphic. So what does this mean? Trend continuation. It means that, I got a trend continuation in the market profile graphic here. Great. Same for Bitcoin. Crude oil was an extension fade. So that means we've extended the IB and we're looking to fade back inside the IB. Crude earlier had an IB go with. What does that mean? It looks like I'm looking for us to push outside of the IB and stay outside of the IB. Earlier we had prior value tests. What does that mean? It means that we were inside the range of the prior day, and the expectation is that we would test the prior day's point of control. So these are all things that I can identify fairly quickly just using a market profile graphic. Now, it doesn't mean that all of the other things that you may or may not use to help you organize price aren't helpful. They probably are, but they're helping you on mitigating risk. Part of the question of like, how do I know that that it's right? What would tell me that I'm wrong? Like, those are things that can cascade and layer in to really help you gain the confidence to do what you're trying to do. So, if that makes sense, my encouragement to you would be give it a shot. If nothing else, make sure you have a starter account. So if you had a Trade with Profile account before on our website, you should have the free plan on SignalP, and what that'll do is that'll allow you to see all of the signals that were published from yesterday, and just those. You won't be able to see live signals. You won't be able to save any, but you'll at least be able to see what did we publish yesterday. If you're on the Pro plan, you'll be able to filter for all time, and you can see we have over the last year 2,300 plus signals that we generated. Why is this important? Why is this helpful? It's because if you're trying to get better at executing these things, you can go back in time and say, okay, I want to get better at trend continuation. So you could just go down here to trend continuation, and you could find all of the signals that we had that were identified for trend continuation, and then go do market replay back to that date, and then try that, and then log it as a practice as one of your signals, and go on to the next. This is going to help you build deliberate practice. And the idea is hopefully that you don't need anybody. You have all the competence that you need to succeed. We'll see. All right. So yeah, 2026, it's all about process and playbook. I've got thoughts about, what the year's going to be. And if you follow any type of financial news, you were probably inundated over the last week around, here's the expectations for this year, and here's the risks for this year. And they may all come to fruition, and none of them may come to fruition. But what I do know is that if I have a solid playbook, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. I can just come in and say, yeah, is one of the playbook trades in play? Great. All right, now, where would I want price to be for me to get active in that? Because I know that I can't control outcomes in markets, but I can control where I execute, where I'm willing to put on risk, and when I'm willing to put risk, and at what price I'm willing to do that. And that puts you in control of the market as opposed to having to chase after it, which just rarely ends well, right? So there you go. That is a quick overview of kind of where we're going. If you've got any specific questions around that, I'm happy to answer those and spend the balance of our time going over that. But I'm really excited to get this out. We've been working on this for a long time, and I think this is the year to just really, turn the page toward developing playbooks, because that's what markets need. They need more 4-question playbook traders, not narrative traders. Okay. If you have any questions, feel free to throw those in the Q&A or in the chat box. I'll stick around here for a little bit longer, but otherwise, I hope everybody has a fantastic 2026. And if the playbook with Signal is not for you, that's fine. What I would encourage you to do, if you haven't already done, is go back and look at your trades and try to frame them in a 4-question rubric and say, okay, I took that trade. So when I took that trade, where did I believe price was going to go? Did it go to that price? Why did I believe it would go to that price? What's the hypothesis that would benefit me going to that price? And how do I define risk around that? How do I know that I'm right? How do I know that I'm wrong? You can build your own playbook trades. And I would encourage you to do that. But if you've never even thought in those types of frameworks, or you're like, hey, I would like someone to do the heavy lifting on making sure that I can, just do this, use ours. As far as the starter plan, you just go to SignalP.ai. And if you have a TRADEWITHPROFILE.com account, you should be able to just hit reset password and get access, and you should already have the free plan attached to your account. That's the way to do that. If you don't, you can just go to SignalP.ai and just click starter account and then rock and roll. So if you we'll just go to the homepage here. Right. So if you just go here, start building your playbook, you can either get the starter account or the pro. Make sense? Pretty easy. Awesome. What else? What else would be helpful? All right, so I'm going to pass on this because it's already moved further than I was looking for, so I'm not going to take that trade. Yeah, how do you review it? So let's say that you're trying to identify, if you're trying to hone in on one of these playbook trades or one of these setups, and you'd say, in fact, let's do that. Let's do that with the time we have. Let's say that you're trying to get better at prior value test, and let's look at all time, and let's go back a bit. So let's go back to December 1st. Okay, so let me load up real quickly here. And let's do get some of this stuff off here just to make it really simple. Now these prices are going to be a little off because we had contract roll. So actually, let me do EZ25. All right. So, all right, 425, 415. Let's just make sure they're synced up. Yeah. So you see here's the point of control from the prior day at 415. So the idea is, and let's move forward closer to the open. Okay, here's the open. So we were 327. So that's where the current price is, almost there. So the idea is you're outside the range, you're back inside the range. The target is to test the prior point of control. And we know, going back 1,000 sessions, that if we're inside the prior range, the probability that we'll tag the point of control the prior day is about 70%. So then what I can do then is I can go in and then find, I know I'm looking for 415. Let me get to where it actually triggered. And then you go, okay, well, wrong if we fail to complete before the initial balance or we accept away from value. I mean, I would look at, we're above the volume weighted average price. So that'd be kind of a no-go for me. And I'd be looking to get to, if I bought 3 here, and I'm looking for, what would we say, 415. And I'd be wrong if we're below. So now I'm just going to kind of go and see. We should stay, and this should happen before the initial balance is complete. So like right there, the fact that we moved above, below the VWAP would probably make me nervous. And now if we go back below it, I'd be out. So it's fine if we test it. But, that's the idea, right? So now I can go back and I could take a snapshot of how it was there, play it back, and then, really focus on the area where I'm looking to execute and hone that when I already know what I'm actually looking for. What am I expecting for this to happen? It's gonna really focus you as a trader in terms of like, what am I looking to actually do? And hopefully cultivate a whole bunch of traders that think about the target first, because there just aren't that many out there, unfortunately. And then just because there's, way more, way more retail traders than there are institutional professional traders. If we want to follow these signals, is there a history of them somewhere we can look at to study and figure out how we'd want to enter them? So yeah, like you literally can just go back, pick a date, or if you want to focus on a product, if you want to focus on a specific playbook trade, if you're like, hey, I want to get really good at prior value tests, I think that makes sense to me. I'd like to maybe put that in as one of my playbook trades and working toward an anchor trade, which, by the way, getting success is in this process identifying for yourself what is your anchor trade. What is an anchor trade? An anchor trade is the trade setup that you have in your playbook that when nothing else works, if you wait for that to work, the ship rights itself. Right? There's a very common phenomenon among traders where they'll ebb and flow, and especially if they have periods of success, they will just get more aggressive. It's a very natural human experience that ultimately will end you. Like that will run out, and then you got to reset. And when that happens, what do you reset with? Having an anchor trade is critical around that. But if you don't know what your anchor trade is, that's the task, is figuring that out. And if you don't know what that anchor trade is, and you don't even know what your trade is, well, then I need to find something that will work that I could lean in, and then I can find out, is that going to work really well for me? Get the reps up on that, and then look between a number of those to go, oh, I'm better at this one than this one. I'm going to put this one to use, as opposed to just like, I kind of hope that someday this is going to magically, work. It's like I run across some traders. It feels like they are approaching their trading as if they're going into a junkyard and they hope that someday it's going to become a Airbus A380. Like that's the path of least resistance, the most resistance, right? But if they were like, hey, I have a kit that if I work at this, I can build this thing, and this is what it's going to look like, man, you could really do some cool stuff with that. So okay, didn't get the reset email. We'll try along the site. The message, sorry, you cannot. Please try another one. Okay, we'll look on the back end and find out what's going on with that. I'd say that's a momentary issue. What else? What else would be helpful? Yeah, it is being recorded. So we'll send this out to everybody. Absolutely. The ES is on here. So there weren't any today, but if I look at all time, lots of ES. Yeah, ideally password reset should get you in, but if you have trouble with that, just send us a note through the contact form, and we'll make sure that you get in and that your free account is set. Yeah, the products that we look for are Bitcoin, crude, ES, gold, NASDAQ, Russell, and soybeans. The playbook trades are 3Rev, day after trend, directional open go with, IBGP, IBGW, open drive, open reversal, open test drive, private test, trend continuation, and extension fade. So the question was, will the pro version offer like the pathway learning materials? It will offer pathway like materials. A lot of it will be there. Yeah. Definitely enough for you to be able to understand each of the signals and know what you're looking for so that you can even set up. So I'll do the two platforms that I'm going to focus on this year will be MotiveWave and TradingView. So there'll be templates that you can mimic how I have mine set up around these specific playbook ideas, and that will help you orient around that. And then we're just going to start building a library of each of these trades. So because what you'll find out is that all extension fades look the same. All prior value tests look the same. All trend continuations look the same. So then it's focusing you on something simple. A market profile graphic is really simple, gang. So you spend a little bit of time with that, and the tools for accessing that are easier than ever it used to be. I mean, when I got started, you only got market profile. You literally had to license it with the Chicago Board of Trade, and now you can get it in TradingView, which is awesome. I think that's fantastic. So let's run with that stuff. Oh, that's a great question. As a new trader, should I wait for the initial balance to form before taking trades? I think so. I think that's a wise thing to do. And the reason I think that is because of the just the behavioral statistics around that. So what's the trade-off? The trade-off is I missed the initial balance, and however, which there's a part of your brain that's like, oh, but there's so much opportunity. There's also a lot of risk, right? So if I wait till the IB is complete, I have more structure to lean on. Is there as much opportunity? Probably not. However, my probability goes higher. So what's the trade-off? I'll trade off higher probability for less opportunity, which means I actually could realize more opportunity myself because I'm using defined structure and something I could lean onto. So I think waiting for the IB is a really, really good practice for anybody getting started, which is why, IB go with, extension fade, IB go with on a pullback are like, that'd be places I'd send you first within Signal. Of like, look for those signals first and then, branch out from there. Awesome. What else would be helpful? These are great questions. Thanks, gang. All right. I think we're good. I thought we'd be able tomorrow. What? Yeah, this, the other part of this is that for traders that I'm working with individually, this gives us a platform to track performance so that we can actually get you to the result faster. Because rather than looking at all of these different, it takes me time to get caught up. I can just know, hey, this is what I'm looking for whenever we're looking for the stuff. Okay, awesome. All right, my friends. Well, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for taking a look at the overview. Like I said, we'll get the recording out, and then we'll just start giving lots of examples of how we're using this. And if you try to get on the starter account and reset the password and it doesn't work, again, just send us through the contact form. Just send us a note, and we'll get that synced up. And then if you want to, get into the pro plan, and then you can start saving signals and get those real time and rock and roll. Have a fantastic 2026. Awesome. Okay. Trade well, and we'll talk to you soon. Cheers.